Every day there's less and less reasons for Overwatch 2 to exist. Over the past few years that the game has been out, Blizzard has been slowly stripping away everything that was supposed to make it so unique from the first one that warranted its own game, and now we're just slowly going back full circle to the point that the game is starting to look like Overwatch 1 again. So with the recent announcements, Blizzard stated that they're officially bringing back the 6v6 format for certain game modes to test out if it's something that should be implemented back into the game permanently. Because from the looks of it, the 5v5 format just really isn't it. The Overwatch community has been pretty vocal about the issue for years about how the 5v5 format made the game a living nightmare for tanks, but it's just been wild to see how Blizzard went from promising such huge changes to the game that warranted putting a 2 on its name to now backpedaling on it so much to the basically just we're back at square one at this point. So for a little context, let me give you a quick rundown of everything that Overwatch 2 was supposed to be versus what we ended up with now. So they first announced the sequel back at BlizzCon 2019, and the original plans were to have Overwatch 2 be a completely separate entity from Overwatch 1. Kind of like how you have Team Fortress Classic and Team Fortress 2, where they're both allowed to exist at the same time, except with Overwatch, you know, all the things like skins, all the features, all the new heroes, everything would just keep getting added to both games to kind of just maintain that shared environment. So all your skins would transfer over to the new game, and you basically had the freedom to pick and choose which one you wanted to play without losing access or privileges on any of them. Overwatch 2 was supposed to have the fully fleshed out PvE experience, while also still having the new 5v5 format for PvP. And a little fun fact about this, by the way, before Overwatch 2 was even announced, Blizzard approached a couple of players from the Overwatch League, which doesn't exist anymore, and they had them try out the new 5v5 format to get their feedback on it. All of the players said that it was terrible, but somehow that still didn't convince Blizzard from adding it into the game anyways. So a fully fleshed out PvE experience with a talent system, a 5v5 PvP format, that was the original promise. But over the years of development, Blizzard just kept changing directions on what they were aiming for with the game, and ended up either removing or just never implementing a lot of the features that were supposed to make Overwatch 2 so unique. Like, here's a quick little rundown of the Overwatch 2 timeline. Instead of running two separate games, Overwatch 1 got merged with Overwatch 2, so the players that preferred to play the original had no option but to migrate over. Overwatch 2 was now going to be a free-to-play live service game with a battle pass system. The loot box system got removed, and if you just happened to be holding your loot boxes, well, all of those got opened up automatically. Fast forward to March 2022, Overwatch 2 was taking a little too long to develop, so Blizzard made a small little compromise of releasing the PvP side of Overwatch 2 first with the new engine, the 5v5, and the new gameplay ahead of time, and then the PvE portion would just be added at a later date. Which everything up to this point is still fine. People are hyped up, it's a new game, there's a new format, and we're still getting PvE eventually, right? Well, not really, not exactly. Blizzard cancelled the fully fleshed out PvE experience of Overwatch 2 because they were afraid of how that would impact the main money printer, which was the PvP side. But they decided as a compromise to add story missions that were basically just reanimated Frankensteins from all the scrapped PvE modes that were already finished, and just add that into the game, you know, over time. Originally, they were aiming for 3 story missions every 18 months, and the first story mission bundle, called Invasion, was awful. It was absolutely terrible. Those missions sucked badly, man. They wanted you to pay $15 for a linear action shooter story that had no replayability. It was honestly just a super dull experience to play, and the PvE story missions performed so poorly that it gave Blizzard a good enough reason to just cancel PvE entirely. So Overwatch 2 was originally going to be a fully fleshed out experience, and then that PvE got sliced in half and then removed entirely, and now all we're left is a 5v5 PvP format with a battle pass system, and that's supposed to be the entirety of Overwatch 2. So now at this point, the only thing that's left from the original promise of Overwatch 2 was the 5v5 format, and even that's at risk of being turned back into 6v6. So you gotta ask yourself a question here. What was it all for? Like, you spent 5 full years trying to gaslight the community into thinking that 5v5 was the future of Overwatch, and you were even openly mocking the people who were criticizing the change in format, all just to start backpedaling now. So the only thing that makes Overwatch 2 so unique from Overwatch 1 at this point is the fact that the game runs on a new engine, which, you know, I'll give them that, the game does look really nice, but it also has a battle pass system now, which lets them make way more money per player instead of just charging the upfront $40 entry fee. So maybe I'm just like overthinking it here, the conspiracy hat's on, but maybe they were just looking for a reason, a justification to get rid of the $40 entry fee and just push the battle pass system, because the battle pass system is so much more profitable than just a one-time purchase of $40, and they were kind of just at the risk of getting shut down in so many countries because of the loot box mechanics. Now don't get me wrong, if the 6v6 format does go through, it could be a net positive for the community because it's literally what people have been asking for the longest time. And at first I didn't really understand the importance importance of 5v5 versus 6v6 because I am just like a filthy casual when it comes to Overwatch. I don't stick around long enough to know how that impacts the meta over time. So I had to do a little research to understand the importance of these changes, so let me just break it down for you real quick. So to go over the obvious stuff, everything that came before Overwatch 2 was even a thing, whether it be heroes, abilities, maps, all of that was designed with a 6v6 format in mind. Most importantly, the tank role, because back in the day you had main tank roles and off tank roles. So main tanks like Reinhardt, your whole kit revolves around just defending, you know, that's your main purpose. Meanwhile, an off tank like D.Va was more of a supporting tank that could also fulfill secondary roles here and there. And overall, you had the ability to mix and match different tanks for synergy and sort of just like make up for each other's weaknesses by helping each other out. But with the new 5v5 format being introduced and teams now going down to one tank, the off tank role was basically removed entirely. Everybody's a main tank now, and these characters that were designed to be complementary to the main tank, like D.Va for example, now the dev team had to find a way to make them work as main tanks. So they basically had to play around with their kit to figure out what to do with them, and that's led to a bunch of buffs and patches with the character to try to shoehorn them into that role. And with the current meta of what Overwatch 2 is like, unfortunately there's no way you can just play one tank. You need to learn how to play a few different tanks, and you gotta be ready to be switching between them constantly because the counterpick meta in Overwatch 2 is that strong. Some tanks just outright dominate over others, especially on certain maps, and there's no point in trying to outplay the opponent by just playing your character better, so you're always feeling forced to play the proper counter, and it's gotten to the point where sitting in spawn and waiting to see what your opponent has before switching is an actual strategy that people are using. Back in 6v6, like I mentioned, you had synergy. The two tanks had each other's backs, and even if you weren't playing the most optimal character for the role, it was fine, you know, it wasn't the end of the world. Meanwhile, in 5v5, you're all on your own, and good luck having fun playing the game because you're going to be holding shield for most of the game with nothing to do. The reason Blizzard mentioned that they wanted to try the 5v5 format in the first place was to reduce the queue times for DPS roles, which I do agree the queue times did drop drastically when compared to how Overwatch was looking at the end of its life cycle. And they also wanted the battlefield to be less cluttered and more streamlined, which, you know, I agree, it's also a plus, but they did all of that at the cost of actual player enjoyment. Because like I mentioned, a huge portion of the community was just not happy with the 5v5 format. And I think that for the most part, they were pretty happy with what they had going on for them because Overwatch players didn't really have anywhere else to go. Like, what were they gonna do if they weren't happy with the 5v5? Go play Apex? Go play Valorant? Not gonna happen. But with the sudden rise of new hero shooters popping up out of nowhere like Marvel Rivals, Concord, that unreleased Valve hero shooter, well, I think that all of those announcements back to back that are direct competitors to Overwatch might have given Blizzard a little scare. And I think that they're just afraid of their player base just transferring over, abandoning Overwatch and go play Marvel Rivals instead, especially after seeing how well it did during the beta. So me personally, I don't think they're doing this whole test for 6v6 because they want to and because they're happy and they want to do something nice for the community. I think they're just seeing all the different competition that's popping up, and well, they want to just not be the one that gets replaced. So everybody wants to release a hero shooter, but Overwatch wants to make sure that they're still on top at the end of the day. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about with you guys, so thank you guys for watching.